and in 2017, after many years serving on the board of Girl Scouts USA, Sylvia was appointed as CEO of the organization, not only for all of her amazing skills, but for her passion, her dedication, her commitment to the education and leadership development of girls and women. So we're so happy and proud to have you here today. Sylvia, thank you for agreeing to join us today.
Thank you very much all for being here. It's a real honor to be here. So, you heard all those great things, but I'll tell you the other side of the story, which is, all my grandparents are from Mexico. My dad was born in El Paso, almost Mexico. My mom was born in and, there were times where we lived paycheck to paycheck. We had to live with family members at times when we didn't have any money. For us, long before it was trendy to eat free-range chicken, it was my neighbor's chicken, right? Organic, right? So that really was, our life. And so I'm really grateful for the fact that I got introduced to Girl Scouts at a young age. And Girl Scouts really teaches you a lot about, courage, confidence, and character to make the world a better place. And embedded in our model is social capital. So you have a volunteer, that troop leader, who wants to really develop the potential of every girl. And so that's why, decades ago, looking out after a camping and eating some wonderful s'mores and seeing the stars, that troop leader said, well, those stars, there's planets, those twinkling objects, and there's systems, and there's constellations. And I never even knew that, right? My family just said, twinkly lights, right? But that was really fascinating. And later on, she remembered that. And when we were earning badges, I wanted to earn a cooking badge like all my friends. And she said, we also have a science badge. And so then she introduced me to multitasking. You could do both. And I earned my science badge making Estes rockets. And it, I had a problem solved. I had trial and error. And finally, I did get that rocket to leave the New Mexico sand and go up into the sky. And I realized I could do it. So at that point, I realized I could do science and math. And so I started taking science and math, more science and math. And then I started, the more you do something and you like it, the better you get at it, and then the more you do of it. And so then I became so good, I became rocket science good. So.
It's fascinating because you mentioned it, in much of our trajectories, we all have that, a mentor, or it takes one person to say something to kind of open the door. And I know in doing further research and listening to another interview, you talked about when you spoke to your high school counselor, and I was wondering if you can share that, because I'm just so amazed by how a troop leader said, well, we have the sciences also, you can do both, but what you encountered when you were in high school.
Well, so what was kind of the backstory? So Girl Scouts, I'm very happy that somebody was doing research about 12 years ago at Stanford, because they were in the archives department, and they were trying to figure out why I was one of the first, and one of the few Latina or Latinos who have ever gotten a graduate engineering degree from Stanford. And they said, you were one of the first and still, unfortunately, one of the few. And so when they interviewed me, I didn't realize how much of a connection the Girl Scouts had been my inflection point. So then they said, well, that's why you like science and math, but why did you have the courage, the confidence? Why did you do all these other things in your life? And that also came from the iconic cookie program. You know about Girl Scout cookie program, right? And so I thought I was going to have to quit Girl Scouts because I didn't think I could afford it. And my troop leader said, don't worry, we're going to sell cookies. And so she taught me how to create opportunity. And for somebody who lives paycheck to paycheck, you don't know how to create opportunity. Because if you did, you wouldn't be in poverty, right? And so all of us in the room know how to create opportunity, but maybe many around our families and stuff don't know how to. So for her to say, what you do is you set a goal. And what's your dream? And my dream was to do all of these activities. Well, that became my goal. And then she told me about the number of boxes I'd have to sell. And I thought, okay, but she said, but let's break it down week by week, and then it became manageable. And that was really a huge idea, because at that moment I said, I could do anything. But then she also taught me another thing that has been one of my secrets to success, which is Never leave the side of a sale until you hear no 3 times. And that mattered because the first couple of, you sell to your family and friends and people at church and everybody says yes, but then you have to talk to that person that you don't know. And being raised as in a Spanish-speaking household, very Mexican traditional, you do not talk to adults until you're spoken to. But remember, I had this dream, I had this goal, so I had to get outside of myself. And the first person I went to go sell to that I didn't know, and I said, would you like to buy Girl Scout cookies? She said no. And I stood there rooted in place. And she's looking at me like I said no. And I have a thought bubble that says, troop leader Mrs. Provine said I couldn't leave the side of the sale until I heard no 3 times. So I said, is there anybody at your house that would want to buy Girl Scout cookies? And she said again, no. Again, I didn't move. And then I said, would there be anybody's day that you would make if you bought Girl Scout cookies? And she bought 1 box. I think to get rid of it, but it didn't matter. What that taught me is persistence, resilience. So that in high school, when I'm sitting in that college counselor's office, lounge area, and she looks at me and she said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I signed up to go to college. And she said, girls like you don't go to college. And she was statistically correct at the time, unfortunately, but that didn't make it right. But you know what I did? What was that? It was my first no. So what did I do? I stood up, I went to her office, and I sat down. She followed me, no choice. She said, what do you want to study? I said, I want to be an engineer. And she said, girls aren't engineers. And I said, I'm going to be an engineer. And I became a rocket scientist. Not to prove her wrong, but that was powerful. And then that, I loved hearing the stories early in the entrepreneurial program. But it's weird. In August of 2018, there was a study of less than 0.5% of executives in Silicon Valley are Latinas. And that's hardly not measurable. And I was one of those decades ago. So, and that was because of those never take no, or don't take no, until you've heard it at least 3 times. In my career, I had to twice, when they told me I couldn't do something, I couldn't do global, even though I could speak Spanish, and none of the people running Latin America could speak Spanish. They told me I couldn't. I said, why not? They said, because you're a woman. I said, no. They said it was too unsafe. So I traveled, and I went to the scariest country at that time. And I went on my own dime, came back with letters from business people said that they would do business with me. So what did they have to do? They had to give me the job. Later, at another time, I wanted a global job. And they said, no, you can't do it. Why? Asian men will never want to work with a Latina. What do? I book myself a trip to Asia, to China. I come back with letters of recommendations. What did they have to do? They had to hire me. So that lesson I learned as that little girl of not taking no until you've heard it no 3 times really, was a big motivator in my career too.
Because I was learning more. To be Latina, if not the only Latina, but among few, in terms of when you were working at the Jet Propulsion's laboratory. And in a way, you're another reflection of the story. We all know Hidden Voices, or Hidden Figures, the film that came out. But what was really inspiring was that you take a problem, a challenge, and you go, well, I'm going to find a solution. And so could you talk a little bit what those years were like, or even just the bringing your bicycle to work?
Oh yeah, that one, did you see the movie Hidden Figures? Great movie. When I watch it, I go, they at least had a bathroom to go to. When I started working, they didn't even have a bathroom for me. And so I could have gotten upset, I could have, had coraje and all that, but you know what I did? I just said, where's the closest one? Brought a bicycle in, didn't drink much water, and hustled. And finally, 6 weeks later, they figured she's not going to quit. And so they brought me my own porta potty, and it said hers on it. But I wasn't going to let them keep me from my dream, right? I don't give them the right to block me. I do not. Tell me why you're not going to let me have that, and then I will problem solve around that. So if you think it's too dangerous, then I'm going to go and show you that it's not too dangerous. If you think Asian men will not want to work with a Hispanic woman, well then let me show you that that can happen. So, it's that, it's the things I learned in Girl Scouts, that persistence, that resilience. How do you overcome those obstacles?
Well, and I think it's truly showing your influence and your leadership and how you've trailblazed, because I think that is then reflecting itself in these young girls and young women that are now part of Girl Scouts. And I hope you can share with us, there's so much civic engagement that is now happening within troops and within various parts of the country. Kind of curious about how the current socio-political, cultural climate and how that's impacting the troops and what they're choosing to do.
Girl Scouts is completely nonpartisan, okay, so let's just get that out. But the other thing I want you to understand, how many of you want to see change in our political system? Okay? All right. You need to support the Girl Scouts. Do you know that half of all female elected officials in America are Girl Scouts? Okay? So we are less than 8% of the population, but we're half of all the female elected officials in America. The incoming class in Congress, 60% of them are Girl Scouts. Almost 80% of the female senators, Girl Scouts. All 3 secretaries of state, Girl Scouts. And it's not by accident. You earn civics badges from age 5 all the way to age 18, and this year we're announcing twice as many. There is no other youth-serving organization that teaches civics across the country. And now that civics has been taken out of the classrooms, kids are not learning about how to affect public policy, how to get out the vote, how to find common ground. And so we know that even those young 5- and 6-year-old girls who are doing and earning their civic badge, when they take action, because you always have to take action to make an impact on the community to earn a badge, suddenly the mayor wants to get a picture with them, right? And so what do they learn? They learn that this person wants to take a picture with them. They don't want to take a picture with them. But then you learn that early on. Do you know every year, at least 3 state laws are changed by Girl Scouts in high school? And in preparation of this, the latest ones, 3 years ago, a Latina in Kansas, in high school, Girl Scout changed the law so that developmentally disabled adults could get more funding. A Latina in Puerto Rico changed the law so more data analysis could be done on the very high number of multiple sclerosis in Puerto Rico, and they don't know why. She got the law changed for data collection. These are girls in high schools. In New Hampshire, a girl, she was a Latina, she changed the law on child marriage. So if you want to affect, we are the only youth-serving nonprofit, unfortunately for both boys or girls, but for girls, that does civics from 5 to 18, and we're doubling down. And for me, that isn't about, we do not tell the girls what to believe in, but what we do teach them is how to take positive actions to create the change you want in the world. So if you want to have a lot of Latino voices and perspectives, you gotta get your daughters in Girl Scouts.
Yeah, and I'm curious because we were talking about what are the numbers looking like?
That's really a great question. So we're 107 years old. We've always been inclusive from the very beginning. That wonderful cookie program that you do allows us to be the largest female organization that's independent. Because about 10% or less of philanthropic dollars go to women and girls. More money goes to animals than women and girls. There are more national monuments to animals than for women, right? And so the cookie program allows us to be the largest inclusive, independent organization in the world. So what do our numbers look like? For African Americans in our demographic, 5 to 18, African Americans are 14% of the US population, and Girl Scouts are 12%. We have more Latinas than we do African Americans. We have 250,000 Latinas in Girl Scouts. Can you name another youth-serving organization that has 250,000 Latinas? But it's only 14%. And as you know the statistics, we need to be 1 in 4. So we're actively looking to increase the number of Latinas to be at least representative, if not more. We index incredibly well with Anglo and also incredibly well with Asian as well. So our award programs, so our silver and bronze are like the Eagle Scout, which are service leadership awards, and we want all kids. Those are something that you do to improve your community. But our gold award, which is the highest one, means you've created a sustainable change on a grand challenge in your community. So and those places like Stanford, places all over the country, they look for that. The Gates, when they see a gold award, they put her in the finalist file. Universities, when they see that, because what you want is you want those people that have shown they can change the world in a sustainable way. And so projects that our Gold Award girls do are things like straws. Starbucks doesn't do straws, right? Plastic straws, that was a Girl Scout Gold Award project. Reintroducing bees in New York, a Girl Scout project. Oysters, reintroducing oysters in Virginia Bay, a Girl Scout project. There are all these that are huge. So those projects get you on the inside track for colleges, admissions, scholarship. You get tens of thousands of dollars. It's in scholarships for Girl Scouts that are Gold Awards. So that's kind of like it's something that a lot of people, a lot of Latinos don't know that can really advantage your daughter.
And so, like, when you're examining then with, your organization, kind of the challenges, are the challenges that perhaps we don't have enough bilingual troop leaders? Is there a cultural?
So if you think about it, we have a model, and our model is you take girl potential and then you teach her a skill, and that's really where most nonprofits focus. I want to teach you how to code, I want to teach you to do this one thing. But what we do is we also have two other aspects of our model, which is we teach you to take action. It's not just that we've taught you about cybersecurity, you now have to do something around that. But then there's the fourth part of the model, it's that caring adult who's there to develop your potential, like that person who changed my life. And that's where we desperately need more Latinos who have the social capital, who understand the US system, and can help us, as we're teaching all these younger girls, how to really get the best out of both Girl Scouts and the opportunities that exist around them. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking about the Boy Scouts, so how many of you have been thinking about that? Okay, yeah, a few of you there. So just, two separate organizations completely. And we are going to continue to focus on girls. We very much like our inclusiveness. We also like our lifetime outcomes. I'm so proud. Dolores Huerta, she was a Girl Scout. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, how many of you in here were Girl Scouts? You look around, yeah, it's not a surprise. If you look at Silicon Valley, 80% of the female leaders in Silicon Valley who were born in the US were Girl Scouts. It's almost every governor was a Girl Scout. So we have this amazing outcomes opportunity. So we just want to make sure the rising generation has those great opportunities as well, because the network exists. Girl Scouts is a well-known institution. We've got the programs, the things we're doing with STEM, it's amazing. We have cybersecurity programs, we have STEM, we have outdoor. We launched cybersecurity last year between kindergarten to 5. Do you know how many girls we've already reached? And we haven't had the program out for a year. 45,000. 45,000 girls are learning cybersecurity skills. And this year we're going to launch the older girls. So we have the ability, when we do something, we can scale across the country. We reach every residential zip code. And we really focus on how do we make sure that we reflect all the communities that we're serving. And so that asset allocation model, we work really hard to try to improve it so that it looks like the communities that we're serving.
That's fantastic. I'm curious, because I always, I know that Girl Scouts have had such a profound impact on your life just as a young person and circling back now forward. But talk to me a little bit about your greatest influences. Like, who's that person that kind of was a beacon for you?
Well, it depends. I'm just so grateful in terms of, like I mentioned, my troop leaders, but also the folks at Stanford, because then when I got here, I realized I could think it's big. Remember that lesson I learned as a young girl? I realized at Stanford, there are no barriers. You can dream as big as you can. And so I really do feel that. And for a lot of people, especially a lot of Latinos, we do not know about the power of these kinds of institutions. And you might think, oh, they're old-fashioned. Let me tell you, we do really reach across America. Our cookie program, that entrepreneurial program that allows us to be so inclusive. Folks, that's an $860 million program. We, in 3 months, we're the second largest cookie program in America, second only to the Oreo. But that teaches girls entrepreneurial skills. And that's why so many of American business leaders were Girl Scouts, because they learned how to sell, how to not take no for an answer. So for me, one of the things about where I've had a lot of opportunities, and I was really grateful. I had a successful exit from an entrepreneurial program. It was one of the few things he didn't mention. He mentioned a lot. But I could have done a lot, but I realized there was so much about being in a position where you can make change and can affect change nationally. The great thing about being the CEO of Girl Scouts is that you can pretty much reach anybody, anywhere. I mean, today we had a Girl Scout on Ellen. I mean, you can reach almost anyone. And so for me, is how do you use that power for good? How do you get that? You can reach millions of girls, and how can you get them so that that power is used for good across America? And I wake up every day thinking about that, because it gave me the life-changing opportunities, and I wonder, how can I get that to more? It's so amazing. I have this book, Path to the Stars. It's a middle school memoir. And the reason I wrote it is that I was speaking to all of these kids, like in Texas, California, and kids would line up, and I would think it was a line for lunch, but they all wanted to talk to me, and they wanted to just, touch my clothes, find out what kind of clothes I wore, where did I buy my glasses, those kind of things, because they realized, I want to be like you, and I don't know how, right? And so it is just so important to be able to provide them that inspiration, but not just the inspiration, the real skills, the pathway, so that they can have success, because it can be replicated. I mean, if you think about my success is not unusual. There are millions of women like me because of their involvement with Girl Scouts. So I think, wow, that's a proven model. Why don't we then apply it to the Latino community? Imagine what we could do then. Imagine the representatives, imagine the senators, imagine the governors, and imagine the presidents of America. I can see that, and I see them, and I want that for them and for us.
That you were sharing with me, I was so moved by the troop that used part of their cookie money to help in Puerto Rico. So
yeah. So one of the great things about Girl Scouts, we are not only the do-gooders, we're the girls that do good. So girls get to keep part of their cookie proceeds, but they have to do a community project with it. So that $860 million, $200 million is spent by girls all over the country on doing projects. Well, after the hurricane that devastated Puerto Rico, Puerto Rican girls and other girls all over the United States, they used their cookie proceeds and dedicated it to Puerto Rico. At a time when our government was throwing, napkins at them, these girls were actually getting cold hard cash and delivering supplies and much needed hope to Puerto Rico. And I'm proud to say Girl Scouts now is flourishing in Puerto Rico. And it's because they look, how can I make the world a better place, and how can I give to others?
Yeah, that's, just fantastic. I think now we're kind of at a point where we just kind of want to expand our living room chat right now. And if any of you have questions for Sylvia, now is a wonderful time we can just open it up and engage together in conversation. So we have microphones. So I guess we have one right here in the front. Yeah, you're waiting for a mic. Or yeah, you can just start talking. Here we go. Oh, it's coming. Here we go.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. My daughter has been a Girl Scout. She recently became more involved in other activities. Maybe we'll revisit. But my question is, growing up, in Boyle Heights, low income, and the projects, I never heard of Girl Scouts. My parents certainly did not either. What are you doing to diversify in terms of the socioeconomics and the next generation to recruit and make families aware of the value? Because honestly, this is the first time I hear it share it in this way, because even at my daughter's school, like with her troop, it wasn't expressed in this way. Like you're reselling me again.
Okay. So a third of girls and Girl Scouts are in low socioeconomic, and we're really proud of the fact that we're always trying to be incredibly inclusive. You might have heard about Troop 6000, which is the homeless troops in New York, 800 girls that are in Girl Scouts all over the U.S. Here in the Bay Area, we have a very large group as well for homeless girls. We really look to be for everybody. It's one of the great things about Girl Scouts. I was at a big event in Los Angeles, and we had every kind of car represented there, from Bentleys and Teslas all the way to the Hyundai that's seen its better day. And that's the great thing about Girl Scouts, is we try so hard to be inclusive. We have been doing quite a bit with Univision and Telemundo to get our PSAs out there. I recorded quite a few PSAs and trying to get them to really reach more. And then also doing partnerships. We have a very active partnership with Head Start and a very big partnership with the Association of Latino Professionals for America, ALPHA. But we're always looking to partner with organizations so that we can start more troops for girls. Absolutely.
Any other questions? So there's one in the back.
One of the wonderful things about this summit is the variety of topics. We just had an immigration topic, which was very emotional and very enlightening. With the wide reach of the Girl Scouts, is there any kind of social piece that you're embarking upon, or any plans for that in the future?
So one of the things is we're very nonpartisan, but we're very much focused on how do we get girls to use the tools that they have, the skills and the tools, so that they can create the change that they want to see in the world. So we don't take a partisan step, but then we really try to give them the tools. So what's so impactful every year is to see the projects that we see as silver, bronze, and gold awards for girls, and especially girls on the border or just about anywhere, what they're trying to do to affect sex trafficking, trying to do things around immigration, around the wall. We really want to give them their tools so that they can affect change. One of the things that was amazing is one of the girls did such an effective sex trafficking videotape that the FBI now uses it. So, you know, we really want to have, and since we have such wide range, that's the other reason I want to get more Latinas to get in Girl Scouts and stay in Girl Scouts, because if you imagine you have the skills and the tools, you can have powerful influence. You know, big, powerful influence. Yeah.
For those of us who are local here, I wonder if we may have heard of the Radical Monarchs out of Oakland that they're not affiliated with Girl Scouts. There's a group of moms who started something for their students, their children, that are kind of based on Girl Scouts, but for girls of color with troops, leaders of color, and they have their own. Does anyone else have heard of the Radical Monarchs? Am I the only one?
We have
I'm wondering if have you had any contact with them, or if you've seen their model. Their badges are about social justice and about more very focused on girls of color. So I'm wondering if you've heard of them.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah. We're very happy with how inclusive we are and how diverse we are. We're always striving to be even better. But like I said, we have 250,000 Latinas. We have almost 200,000 African American girls. So those are really big numbers and really big reach. And we're very focused on not telling girls what to believe, but to giving them the tools for whatever they believe, they can affect change. And I'll tell you my example of one. So when I was on the White House Commission, so I believe very strongly in the importance of bilingual. But you know, so being on that commission, what we decided to do is, in my subcommittee, you might think, oh, these things don't matter. Well, I said, we're going to focus on one thing, being an engineer, sort of narrow things down. And the one thing we were going to do is change the public policy so that federal funds could be used for bilingual instruction materials in pre-K. Before that happened, you could not use federal funds. So a kid could show up knowing one language and they would immediately drop it because they'd say you have to learn English, and you couldn't spend any federal funding on bilingual curriculum. We got that policy changed. And so that freed up millions of dollars. And so I think about how important it is to have people who understand how to change the system, to be in key positions, and when they're in those positions, things change because of that. I mean, many of you are too young, but if you're my age, when you were younger, having breast cancer was a life sentence. Well, thanks to one Girl Scout who went to Capitol Hill and said, federal government, how much money is spent in cancer research on women? And at that time, in 1992, $0 were spent on cancer research on women. And so she said, how about breast cancer? And they said, $0. So think about that. She was like, on breast cancer, you don't include women? They go, yeah, we don't know how to solve for hormones as a variable. That's kind of the point, all right? And the law got changed. So in 1993, the law got changed to include women in research. As a result of that, guess what? They discovered life-changing treatments that now don't make breast cancer a life sentence. So there is that power of those people, all over throughout, who then get into key positions and can change it for the better for all of us. And I think about that every day.
All right. Oh, God.
Yeah. Yes.
Question, but where's the microphone?
Where's the mic?
So it is one of those things, being the CEO of a 107-year-old institution, it is sometimes like juggling knives, but I always stay focused on how do you continue to make the world a better place? How do you create girls of courage, confidence, and character, make the world a better place? And when that happens, everything kind of comes in alignment. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I've heard your podcast with Maria Hinojosa, so it's a pleasure to see you in person. First of all, where did you get that jacket? 'Cause that's
I got it in San Francisco, and the story is, in Style magazine in February, named 50 Badass Women. Michelle Obama's #1, and I'm #7. And so I had
we put you #1. The real question here, so there's a lot of talk always about, switching away from Girl Scouts, there's a lot of talk about work-life, I'm not going to say balance, but blend. Blending of priorities, blending of all the different things that you have to do in your personal life, professional life, etc. A lot of young moms here, a lot of mid-career professionals, a lot of retirees. Maybe not as many retirees, I don't know. How have you done it? How have you gotten to the point where you are now and blending everything, traveling to DC, running corporations, running the Girl Scouts, etc. And rocket science.
Yeah, so different times in your career, it's so important to invest in yourself. And so sometimes you really do have to unhook, and I've taken times, like after I had a successful exit, I took time and really invested in myself. So that was like not doing a lot of other things, and that is like really getting, really understanding what it is you want to do. When I left Austin, I moved to Santa Barbara, and I purposely didn't do a lot, and I wrote a couple of things. I wrote my book, I wrote a curriculum, but I didn't really engage a whole lot. So there are times when you try to do everything all the time, you'll just burn yourself out. So you really have to set priorities, but always be investing and always being prepared. I like to say that I would always choose clothes for where I wanted to go. And when I knew I wanted to go to the White House at one point, and so I had this outfit, and I just knew it was the outfit. It took me a lot longer to get to the White House, and luckily the outfit still fit. But it's that power of visualization and just figuring out what it is that you want to do, and just be, have those kinds of goals in your mind. And then what do you have to do to be ready? Because you never know when you'll get that opportunity, and you don't have time to get ready. So it's sharpening yourself, sharpening your skills, pushing yourself when no one else is pushing you. I always am, studying and preparing, because I never know when I'll need to have that information. But I also have times in my life that I've taken real big breaks. gotten off the adrenaline train and just kind of relaxed too, as well.
I think we have time for one more question. Oh my gosh, here we go.
Thank you for being here. My name is Patricia Santana, and my question is, and I think you've answered part of it, and that's regarding your leadership skills. It seems like you've been in different leadership positions, and I guess maybe a large number of us get to a leadership position, but how do you develop that leadership?
You know, so you've got to practice, you've got to put yourself to be a leader. You have to put yourself, and don't expect to do it right the first time, but keep putting yourself into those positions. Because if you don't, you'll never get the skills and that confidence to be able to do that. I'll never forget when I was the head of Latin America for a networking company, and I had tried so hard. That was one of those opportunities where I had to, pay my own way to get my boss. And then finally I'm there, and then I'm thinking, I'm in the Hotel Tamanaco in Caracas, Venezuela, and I think, there's an entire ballroom of all these Latin American men, and now I have to go out and inspire them and tell them why they have to buy our products in Spanish. And I'm sitting on that bed thinking, what have I done? Right? But you know what? I went out, I did it. If I wasn't perfect, I'm trying to improve so I can do it again. But also as a woman, you have to take risks, and as a Latina woman, people look beyond you. I tell you, if I go to a cafe here in Palo Alto, people will look up and then look through me. And so you've got to figure out how to get yourself noticed and how to work the situation so that you get yourself in those meaningful conversations so that you're the person that they're thinking about. And a lot of times for Latinos, we're not very comfortable with talking to people and telling people what our goals, what our aspirations are, why we're uniquely qualified for those jobs. But we need to do that. And you have to realize that it's a muscle that you have to develop. You can't just be being a couch potato and say, God, I kind of want to be there. It's like you got to be there, and it's a muscle you have to work. So, and there will be some times that what I like to say that is, you won't, if you're hitting the target 100%, you're standing too close to the target. So, you've got to stretch yourself, you've got to try. Sometimes you won't be successful, but you'll keep trying and you'll learn from it, and as you learn from it, you'll get better at it.
And something that I've learned, I'm going to take away, is I'm not leaving that site till I get 3 no's.
Yes.